Welcome back to Stoic Paths. What happens when she realizes you've lost interest? It's not what you think. It's more intense, more revealing, and it can completely flip the dynamic in your favor. The way she reacts will tell you everything you need to know about her true feelings and your power in the relationship. Stay with me because understanding her reaction will give you powerful edge you didn't even know you had won. The initial shock of losing control. When a woman realizes you've lost interest, the initial shock hits harder than you might imagine. This isn't just about surprise, it's about the sudden realization that the dynamic she was once in control of has shifted entirely. Up until now, she might have felt secure in the idea that you were invested, predictable, and emotionally engaged, but when that energy disappears, it creates an emotional ripple effect. She can't ignore the shock comes from the loss of certainty. Certainty is comforting. It tells her where she stands and gives her the reassurance that you're still there, paying attention and emotionally involved. Losing that certainty forces her into unfamiliar territory. She starts asking herself, what changed? Did I misread him? Was there something I missed? These questions don't just stem from confusion, they come from the fear of losing the connection she thought she controlled. But here's the powerful part. This moment of shock is where the balance begins to shift. Your silence and withdrawal create a sense of mystery. She doesn't know where she stands anymore, and that uncertainty creates an emotional pull. Her mind becomes preoccupied with the why, and that question alone can dominate her thoughts. The important thing for you here is not to fill in the blanks for her. Let her sit with the shock and the questions. It's in this space of discomfort that she starts to reevaluate you and her behavior too. Her need to reclaim validation. Validation is like oxygen in relationships. When she feels your attention and interest slipping away, it creates a void that her mind can't ignore. This void triggers her instinct to reclaim that validation, to ensure that she still holds a place of significance in your life. But this isn't just about feelings, it's about regaining a sense of power and control. You might notice subtle shifts in her behavior during this phase. She could start reaching out more, sending texts that seem casual but are really just text messages like, hey, how have you been? Or I saw something that reminded me of you. Are not accidental. They're calculated efforts to gauge your emotional state and see if you'll engage. She's looking for signs that she still matters, that she still has some level of influence over you. However, her actions might also escalate if she doesn't get the response she's hoping for. She may try to provoke an emotional reaction by mentioning other men or acting as though she's completely indifferent to your absence. But this isn't true indifference. It's a way of testing your boundaries and your emotional stability. The critical mistake most men make here is giving in too quickly. They misinterpret her attempts at reclaiming validation as genuine interest, and they revert to old patterns of chasing or over-explaining. But the real power lies in holding your ground by staying composed and detached. You force her to work harder to understand you. This subtle but profound shift changes how she sees you. It makes her realize you're not the same man she thought she had figured out. 3. The curiosity that drives her to reevaluate. Once the initial shock fades and her attempts to regain validation fall short, curiosity takes over. This curiosity isn't just about you, it's about understanding what went wrong and what changed. Women are naturally analytical, especially when it comes to relationships. When your behavior shifts unexpectedly, it triggers a need to figure out why. She begins replaying your past interactions in her mind, analyzing every detail for clues. Did she miss something? Did she overlook something important? These questions aren't just passing thoughts, they become a constant loop in her mind. She might even start asking her friends for advice, trying to piece together a narrative that explains your behavior curiosity also leads to reflection. As she digs deeper, she starts to see things she might have ignored before: your qualities, your efforts, and the things that made you unique. Your absence creates a space where these positive traits become amplified in her mind. It's as if your silence has turned the volume up on everything she took for granted. The beauty of this phase is that you don't have to do anything. Her mind is doing all the work for you. The more curious she becomes, the more invested she gets in understanding what happened. And the more invested she becomes, the more likely she is to realize just how much she stands to lose. For how her ego comes into play: her ego is a powerful force in this equation. It's tied to her sense of identity and control, and when that control is threatened, her ego reacts defensively. Realizing that you're no longer as interested as you once were forces her to confront a version of herself she might not want to see. The ego thrives on validation and certainty. When you are attentive, responsive, and emotionally available, it reinforced her sense of importance in your life. But the moment you pull back, that reinforcement disappears. This creates an inner conflict. She starts questioning whether she misjudged her influence over you. This phase can be difficult for her because it challenges her perception of the relationship. If she thought she had the upper hand, your withdrawal forces her to reconsider. Her ego might lead her to act out, trying to regain the power she feels she's lost. This could include provoking you with indirect comments, trying to make you jealous, or acting overly confident to mask her insecurity. The key here is to remain steady. Don't let her ego-driven reactions pull you back into old dynamics. Your calm and composed demeanor will do more to unsettle her than any reactive behavior ever could. Over time, her ego will take a backseat to her emotions, and that's when real reflection begins. 5. The turning point: when she feels the void. Silence is often underestimated, but its impact becomes undeniable when she starts to feel the void you've left behind. This isn't just about missing your presence, it's about the absence of everything you brought to the relationship: your attention, your energy, and your consistency. At first, she might brush it off, thinking she can adjust to the new dynamic, but as days or weeks go by, the weight of your absence begins to settle, and she starts to notice the little things she took for granted: the way you made her laugh, the way you listened, or even the stability you provided. These realizations come in waves, and each wave hits harder than the last. The void isn't just emotional, it's psychological.